Welcome to Unscripted with Russo. For our podcast, we decided to explore the people behind the narratives. I'll introduce decision makers and influencers and find out the intimate story behind their rise to success. Welcome to another edition of Unscripted with Russo. I'm your host, Ashley Russo, and I am here with someone who is not only going to be a phenomenal guest, but is an old friend of mine, a colleague, someone I've worked with and have so much respect for. So welcome to Beth Grys, the principal of Mercy School for Special Learning. Beth, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's very good to be here.
You know, it's kind of fun to be able to have this kind of conversation with someone whom I actually do know, right? So, we go way back, and I think it's important to note you were a teacher at St. Michael's School. When my kids were there, we, got the opportunity to work with them, but also for me to get to know you in that capacity.
Yes.
Fast forward several years, end up at Mercy School. I, give time and talent and treasure, hopefully, to Mercy School. We work with Mercy with videos. So our paths crossed in a whole nother way. And it's just been such a pleasure and a joy to intersect with you in so many ways. So today will be no exception, I'm sure.
Thank you. Thank you. It's really wonderful to be here. I appreciate the opportunity.
Before we dive into your current career and your role at Mercy and what Mercy is and what they do for our community, I want to talk a little bit about you growing up, because you did grow up right here in the Lehigh Valley. Tell us a little bit about your upbringing, kind of your family structure, and the type of kid that you were.
I was born and bred in the Valley. I was born in Hellertown, lived there up until I think about 8th grade, and then I moved to Lower Saucon Township. I am the youngest, quite youngest, of 3 children. My brother and sister are much older than I was. So I was the baby of the family, always encouraged to do something different. We had a family business, but I was always encouraged to do something different than that. And that's where high school took me. After high school took me, I went to Bethlehem Catholic, started at St. Teresa's in Hellertown, went to Bethlehem Catholic after that, spent 4 years there, and that's when I kind of decided what my future needed to be. And that was with education, especially
when you talk about being the youngest by a big chunk, what is that gap?
They're going to love this. My sister is 13 years older than me, and my brother is 9 years older than me.
So I have siblings from a second marriage that are 10, 12, and 15 years younger than me. In fact, my youngest brother is closer in age to my son than he is to me. And we talk about that a lot in our family, because not only is it almost generationally a different gap, but it does play a role in the type of kid you are. So I would say, what was it like being, a grammar school kid with siblings in high school? What were you exposed to? What did they expect from you? What did you get away with? I mean, it had to be a different experience to be that kind of youngest by a lot.
I was very, very much the baby of the family and daddy's little girl, which was beautiful growing up. I got away with some things, but I think at the same time, just having grown up in the 70s and 80s, there were still some of those stereotypical type of things. My brother having been the son of the family, my sisters and I a little bit different. I started coming out of that. I was able to have more opportunities, I think, than either one of them did growing up. Certain things that activities, opportunities, clubs, things like that my brothers and sisters never had the opportunity to do, because it just wasn't something that my parents were familiar with. My mom and dad both moved here from Portugal, so I'm a first generation immigrant family here. So they just didn't see things in the same way as maybe someone that had grown up here all the time. So we were definitely limited in many things, but me being so much younger, I did get the opportunity to do more things than maybe they did. So I think that kind of helped me know that my future wasn't limited to what maybe they thought it was. I knew I had more opportunities to do that. But I was the goody-goody. I can't even deny it. I was the goody-goody, except I talked a lot. So
wow. See, I knew there were things we had in common. I was always goody-goody too. And
yeah, it was just who I was.
I love that. And tell me a little bit about that experience of having immigrant parents, first generation people here. What was their experience? And like you said, you sort of experienced it later on. Were there pieces of your Portuguese heritage that ran through your childhood or that continued on?
Absolutely, it did. Family was everything. My grandmother, I had a grandmother in Portugal that came to visit and stayed with us on occasion. My other grandmother was here and lived with us for a great period of time. So that having that multi-generational household was something that was very common to me. And and it became even more so later on for my own children when my mother lived with us for quite a long period of time. Family just became everything. And my parents were very proud of their culture, most especially my father. And when my father came here, he also enlisted in the army without being drafted. So he was in Korea. So he was very proud of his country, even not having been a citizen at that point, to do that. So they were very proud of the opportunity that they had here, but also quite proud of their history and where they were from. And they taught us that as well.
I love that. And wow. Thank you to
Yeah.
your father. What amazing service to our country, and an act of patriotism when it's not even really your home country yet. That's pretty amazing. You
Yeah.
talk about, coming here and thinking about opportunity, and you mentioned you really had a lot of opportunities. How did that translate into your high school years, and when you started thinking about what would next steps be? Bethlehem Catholic, what were the types of things you were exposed to or learning outside of the regular stuff we all learn in school, I suppose, that helped your trajectory into education?
Bethlehem Catholic was a very different experience for me. St. Teresa's in Hellertown was a very small school. I had an 8th grade graduation class of 12. So going into a class of 187 freshmen was very shocking and difficult. It took me a long time to adjust there. But then I saw the different opportunities that they had, different activities, plays and social groups and dances. And I think that the first 2 years, I was figuring a lot of things out and being limited. My parents weren't always big on transporting places. They just didn't see, they didn't have the time, and my mother was not a driver, so that was difficult. Once I got my driver's license, I was able to be more independent. The whole world opened up for me because I was able to take advantage of the things that Becca offered me, like the Key Club, which is an organization I'm extremely proud of. The Key Club is sponsored by the Kiwanis, and they are a high school, the largest high school philanthropic service agency in the country. And they were able to expose me to different things, different projects, different causes. And I think that's when things really started for me. I didn't want to be part of my family business, construction business. No desire, did not have an engineering type setup for me. It wasn't my thing. But working with children always was. It was something that I felt safe in and something I felt confident in. And that's where it started for me, was based on the opportunities that Bethlehem Catholic offered. I was able to really search for what I wanted to do.
So interesting how you mentioned that, the concept that the family business was something you really weren't even encouraged into. The world was open. And interesting, I'm the oldest child, but I had the same experience. Ironically, here I am, and the last couple of years have gotten involved with my family business, but it was the right time, right place choice, versus feeling like that was the only option. And I think that was incredibly important to my mother in particular, to say, go follow your passion, follow, what the gifts that God gave you, whatever that may be. And I always look at that as such a gift. Do you feel the same way?
I don't think I did at the time. Growing up, I think I felt, why didn't they want me to be part of this?
Interesting.
Because my sister and my brother, in all honesty, had no choice. That's just the way it was. It was something that was expected. And I think because there was such a large gap between my siblings and I was much younger, I had an opportunity that they didn't have for that. I am beyond thankful now that I never did take part in that. My husband.
You wonder if the reverse is true, though. Like, you wonder if in their case they think, wow, wish we had had that opportunity to think outside the box. It's interesting, right? Like birth order and where you fall, people always wonder, why do you start with that? And I said, because I think it has like so much more bearing on who we become and what we pursue than we often recognize. And so it's interesting perspective that you had on it of, why didn't they want me? But here it is, it led you to really what is your passion and your calling in life. And my understanding is you specialized in special education and elementary education. Is that correct?
I did. I majored in both at Kutztown because I wanted to make sure I had the opportunity to do either one. It was important to be employable. For me, that was my dad. He wanted to make sure I had a job when I graduated. He wasn't always positive. He didn't understand a lot about education, the teaching world. So he just wanted to make sure I could support myself. So he didn't know, like I said, he didn't know a lot about it. But yeah, I wanted to make sure I was employable, and it gave me both perspectives, which has been an incredible gift.
That's awesome. Well, we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, I want to hear more about your choice specifically for special education and where that led you early on in your career. You're listening to Unscripted with Russo. We'll be right back. As a mother of two, I know it can be tough to find activities that everyone will enjoy. Luckily, the Lehigh Valley has so many ways to treat your family without breaking the bank. You can experience cool discoveries at the Da Vinci Science Center or all aboard the WKNS railroad train for an afternoon adventure. There's fun around every corner of the Lehigh Valley, and you can uncover it all on Discover Lehigh Valley's website. Visit discoverlehighvalley.com for more information. Welcome back to Unscripted. I'm Ashley Russo. I'm having a great conversation with this amazing woman who we are so lucky to have in our region, Beth Grys. She's the principal of Mercy School for Special Learning. Beth, you grew up right here in the Lehigh Valley, went to Bethlehem Catholic, talked about having immigrant parents, the opportunities that maybe were afforded to you that weren't necessarily to your siblings or to your family, that led you to Kutztown University to get a degree in education, but special education specifically. Did you always know that was something you wanted to do? When did that piece become important to you, and why?
It's actually funny because I know exactly when it happened. I was a junior in high school, and Bethlehem Catholic had Key Club conventions that all across the state people would go to. And at that point, the cause for the state for all Key Clubs was the Spina Bifida Association. And the little girl that was the face of it for that year happened to be my sister-in-law's niece. And it was through those moments and those stories that I realized I need to do this. I need to somehow be involved with children like this. And I never went back from that. I spent time senior year just trying to figure out where I wanted to go. And Kutztown had an exceptional reputation for special education classes and degrees. So that's where I went.
It's so amazing. I think that, that's one of those fields that you're in that really truly is a calling. I think all teaching truthfully is a calling, but people who work with children with special needs is a whole nother level that really takes an incredible gift, talent, patience. So I just think it's the coolest thing. And if I understand correctly, I believe one of your daughters is also in special education now. Is that right?
Both my daughters are educators in Nashville, Tennessee, but my youngest is a special education teacher with students that are extremely challenged, extremely behavioral. I cannot believe what she does every day. I just can't. I'm in awe of what she does.
And really. Isn't that amazing that you finding this and what they saw and really it called to them as well? I just love that part of your story, and they're amazing young women doing great things. So tell me about your first job after college. Well, before I get to that, did you have any part-time jobs in high school or during college? Did you do anything that you want to share?
No,
Really?
I did not work in high school.
Okay.
My parents were absolutely against it. They wanted me to focus on my schoolwork and other things and really wanted no part of me working, which I really do think was a negative for me. I think it would have been better had I worked. My husband worked all through high school and college, and that puts a different perspective on him. I wish I would have had that. So I think children working in high school, as long as they can manage it, is a good thing. But I did not do anything. I graduated college and went right into teaching.
Wow. So first of all, what was your first job, and what was that adjustment like, having really just been a student? And I don't say just, but a lot of kids balance those things, and it's these shocking moments, right? These transitional moments of your life. I always think are formative. And tell me about what your first job was and what was that like to get up and have to go. So, college isn't like that. I mean, that's what I keep telling my kids, this idea that you have like 2 hours of class on a Wednesday and then the rest of your day is free is sort of,
it's not real life.
Not reality.
No. I was very fortunate to get a job teaching special education in Wilson School District in West Lawn, PA. I had actually turned down 2 other jobs in the Valley because they weren't permanent jobs. They were only subbing, and I didn't want to do that. I wanted a permanent job, and Wilson and West Lawn at that point had given me that job. It was extremely difficult adjustment. I ended up moving to live in Reading for 2 years. I got a paycheck. To me back then, I was floored with what I thought was a lot of money. It wasn't exactly a lot of money, but it seemed to me it was a tough adjustment, just going right from school to learning how to manage your money, learning how to be a professional with other professionals in a time period when special ed is definitely not what it was now. So it was very difficult. It took some time. I was there for 4.5 years. So it took some time to adjust.
And then you moved to the diocese, is that right? To the Diocese of Allentown? Was that your next job? And was that a job that you really were seeking, or was that a job that sort of found you?
Both. I left Wilson West Lawn when I was pregnant with my oldest daughter. I got married, was pregnant with my oldest daughter, and I was done. I was happy to be stay-at-home mom. I was good with it. I didn't have any desires to go any further. I was happy. But then when I came back, I was really involved in our church. And of course, our Monsignor Martin at the time wanted, would you take over Bible school? Ooh, yes, I took over Bible school, raising my little guys at home. They went with me. They loved it. And then Gabby started going to school at St. Michael's, and then Megan was getting closer to school age, and I was missing it. I was missing that class, that the teaching, the children, the connection with the kiddos. So when Megan was in first grade, I spoke with Carol Sonnen at the time, and she hired me. It went through a few jobs till I got to the one where I was to teach fifth grade at the middle school level, and I absolutely loved it. I loved teaching in the diocese because I found for me, public school wasn't where I wanted to be. There were a lot of limitations there, a lot of limitations on my faith at the time that I couldn't be expressive of anything. I could not for me justify that in my life. It wasn't working for me. And I had an extremely supportive husband who understood that I wasn't going to get paid near what I was getting paid before. But he was extremely important of understanding that I needed to do this. I wanted my children in Catholic school. I wanted them exposed to that type of education. And it was very, very important. So while I didn't necessarily seek it, I found it in my lap. It just kind of happened. And I stayed there. I stayed at St. Michael's for over 10 years.
Wow, we were so lucky to have you. I know you were one of the most beloved teachers there, certainly in our time. And, one of the teachers the kids would talk about. I mean, I think it's one thing for parents to say, oh, this teacher's great, or this teacher, but when the kids say, Mrs. Grys is so cool. Mrs. Grys understands. Mrs. Grys had a cool project. She listened to me. When you think about that, not in only in your role at St. Michael's, but your role now at Mercy, what are the factors that are important to you as an educator and as a person and as a mom to connect with your students and your families every day?
There is absolutely nothing more important in education than connecting with the children, listening to them, validating their feelings, understanding that they are who they are, and they're going through things just like we did growing up. And you have to allow them to express that. You have to validate who they are as individuals. And when you don't do that, they know it. Students know when you're not genuinely interested in who they are and what they're doing, and that they know when you don't really care about them. I really cared about my children. I understood that I wanted to treat them in the same way that I wanted to treat my own kids. I still keep in touch with quite a few of those students from my St. Mike's times. It's wonderful. It's wonderful.
I know that every time we see each other, you always ask about Nolan and Rena. And I always go back and share that, and they have such fond memories of you. And I think it matters. I just said, as a parent, I thank you. It's encouraging. Those middle school years are really challenging.
It's so hard
for everybody involved. And it's just neat to have somebody who cares on that level, and still does to this day. It means a lot to us and to them. What about the transition? So you're at St. Mike's, you're kind of rocking and rolling, you've gotten in a rhythm, you're in a role that you enjoy, your kids are growing up, they're in high school. When does this principal concept come into play for you?
It didn't come right away. I had decided that my time at St. Michael's was up, and I missed special ed. I wanted to get back to something like that. I stopped teaching special education when my children went to school, because for me, when you teach special ed, you give everything to your children. And I didn't want to neglect my own children in that process emotionally, because it's very difficult. But they were old enough now to understand, and old enough to support a decision that I would do that. So of course I followed them to high school, which they were not happy about at the time. And I went to Notre Dame and took a position there as the Aquinas chairperson, which is their special education in the high schools, their learning support and assisting students with special needs, and theology. So I got the best of both worlds, what I wanted.
So if you go to Catholic school, just for people who may not be familiar, and you have special education needs, there's an Aquinas program. That's what it's called, St. Thomas Aquinas. And tell me, how is it similar, and how does it differ from, say, a special education program in a public school? I mean, it's pretty different.
It is very different, and it's difficult to compare, because public schools have to offer so many different varieties of supports. And admittedly, Catholic schools are limited in some of the things that they can do, but they have made great strides in the past years to be able to work with all students, to be inclusive of all kiddos. And that works through the Aquinas program and many of our typical Catholic elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools. So we do our best to support them academically in as much of the way as we can. So I was fortunate that the position there was open so that I could work with supporting some of our high school students through that process.
And in the background of that, are you continuing any additional education?
I wasn't at that point. I was very content where I was. I could have stayed there. I was happy. The girls were graduating. I was good to go. And then at a mass, Dr. Brooke Tichet, who was our former chancellor, came up to have a chat with me. And she said, have you ever had an interest in being a principal? My answer was absolutely not. I'm a teacher. I want to be a teacher. I didn't want to do that. And then I said to her, except at a place like Mercy, because Mercy to me was a perfect place to be. It was a place where all children in a Catholic setting, which is unheard of, could exist, could thrive, could succeed. And she said, okay. And then I got a call 2 days later saying the position was open. They had been interviewing and I had no idea the position was open because I wasn't looking for it. Needless to say, a few meetings later on, I was hired a month later.
Wow.
Yeah.
Talk about a wild twist and turn. One conversation with Brooke and there you go. What was that moment like for you? Because while exciting, I would imagine also daunting.
It's difficult to put into words how overwhelmed I was. They offered me the position and I sat back with my family, my girls on the phone because they weren't home, and my husband, and I said, I want to explain to you what this means. I can't just do this as a job. If I do this, this becomes my life. We're all in as a family. In some regard, we're all doing this, and I need your support and I need your ability to help me with this. Well, of course, my children are wonderful. They're very encouraging, and my husband was phenomenal. And then I took the job, and I had a summer here with my predecessor, Bridget Muhlenkamp, who made the transition here easy as possible. And the first day of school, the kids came off the bus. I ran in my office, cried for a few minutes, thinking, "Oh my word, this is phenomenal! What did I unworthy of the position?" Took a little while. I was better. It took a few minutes, and then I cannot imagine being any other place. It was a tough learning curve. Was tough. I had no intention of being in administration, but the faculty here is phenomenal. They are experienced. They are loving. They are great. They helped me adjust in here, and I have no desire to leave to go anyplace else.
For people who aren't familiar, tell us what Mercy School for Special Learning is. Sure. And why it's a unique place, not only in our region in the Lehigh Valley, but really in the country.
Mercy School for Special Learning is a school which offers educational opportunities for students with developmental and intellectual disabilities. And that's a very broad category. We cannot help every child. There's certain things that we do not specialize in, but every child that comes to Mercy, we meet, we look at who they are, we assess who they are, and determine if we can help meet their need. And right now we have 53 students in our school this year of all different varieties of academic challenges. We have a specialized preschool program, our little guys that come in here to get a start. This is where they're beginning. We have students here that have Down syndrome. We have students here that have autism. It's a wide variety. And the best thing about it, the thing that makes it so unique, is that we do this in a Christ-centered environment. So we prioritize not just the education of the students, we also prioritize their faith development, their social development, their emotional development, and their health and wellness. We look to teach an entire child, which is something that is a huge benefit in Catholic education, because you really get to help students at every level. We don't have to not talk about this or not talk about that. I can really work with that with my kiddos, and it is different. There are 3 in the Diocese of Allentown, but this doesn't exist everywhere.
No, it doesn't. And it's you have students that travel quite a distance often. How do families find Mercy School, and are they Catholic?
I would say right now about 40% of my population is not Catholic.
That's a pretty big percentage.
Yeah, it is.
Because I wonder, how does that measure up against kids in other Catholic schools that are not special learning centers. I think that's got to be a totally different statistic.
I'm sure it is.
Yeah.
I would think that it's much
I
less
just want to
than
point that out because I
it
think
is.
it's really important to note that while Mercy is a diocesan school and
Mhm.
supported by the Diocese of Allentown and a Catholic,
Mhm.
Christ-centered education, you accept students with needs that you can help regardless of their
Mhm.
religious affiliation, correct?
We absolutely do. First thing I tell them is that you don't have to be Catholic to be here. Well, they are part of our classes. They are part of our faith development. And we tell them we want to teach your children to be good people and to love God. No one has ever argued that point with us.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. And we
Amazing,
bring
Beth.
students in here from 9 districts and all the way from Northwestern. We had a family from Stroudsburg, and this is the first time we don't have them because they both graduated last year. So people
Amazing.
come to us from all over. Sometimes therapists give suggestions. Believe it or not, sometimes school districts will give suggestions. So
That's
we're very fortunate.
which really speaks volumes. So we're going
Mhm.
to take a quick break. When we get back, we're going to talk a little bit more about Mercy's role in the Lehigh Valley and your love of the Lehigh Valley. So stick with us. You're listening to Unscripted with Russo. Any time of year, the Lehigh Valley is an exceptional place for food, drink, and entertainment. Whether you're cooling off from the summer heat at Dutch Springs or shopping for just the right kind of gift at Chris Kindle Market, you will make memories all year round. For more information on what the Lehigh Valley has to offer, check out Discover Lehigh Valley's website at discoverlehighvalley.com. Welcome back to Unscripted. I'm Ashley Russo. I'm being joined by the principal of the Mercy School for Special Learning, Beth Grys. We've had an amazing conversation about Beth growing up here in the Lehigh Valley, knowing she wanted to go into education, finding special education, and eventually finding her way into a role she never thought she'd have as an administrator and as a principal, and now couldn't imagine her life any other way. So Beth, thank you for sharing your journey with us.
You're welcome.
So far. Mercy is such a cool place.
Mhm.
For those who have never experienced it, for those who might have slight fear of people with special needs,
Mhm.
what do you want them to know about the experience of engaging and interacting, right? You might run into someone in the grocery store or a restaurant or an airplane that has special needs and maybe isn't communicative in the way that we feel is quote unquote normal. What do you say to people on how to approach and address people with special needs and their families?
I would tell them, don't be scared. Engage them like you would anyone else. As you said, many of our students with special needs may not be able to communicate in the same way that you and I would. But when you go up, don't talk over them. Greet them directly. Hi, how are you? And they may not answer you back, but you've given them respect of doing that. And their parents are going to appreciate that also. Many times parents, as long as it's asked politely, are happy to answer questions. They would rather put the information out there so people understand it and are not frightened or not confused. And especially children. Children ask the most amazing questions, and they should be encouraged to go up and say hello and engage people with special needs. They're just like us. They're just like you and I. They think the way that you and I do, but sometimes they just can't express it in the same way that we do.
That's great advice. And when you've been out in the Lehigh Valley and you have a great volunteer base, you have a great donor base. Of course, can always use more of both.
Nice.
But how would you describe the Lehigh Valley and its commitment to a place like Mercy?
I have been so humbled and so speechless, which is something for me, at the amount of support this school has gotten. Even during the pandemic, when we were very worried that we were going to lose our private support just because of the stresses that everybody in our country was having, our support increased. People love our mission so much that they knew that we needed help. And the Valley has been so supportive of Mercy and events that we have and welcoming us to their venues and always being there for us in whatever way we've needed. So we're very blessed to be in the Lehigh Valley.
Yeah, it's a pretty special place. So, you were born and raised here. You moved a little bit to Reading. You've got daughters that are now in Tennessee, correct?
Oh, Nashville, Tennessee. Yes.
Yeah. So why the Valley for you? Why do you stay here? What do you love about it? And what do you think makes it unique and different?
And this is home. The Valley is a really special place to be. There's a little bit of everything here. You never really have to drive too far to get anywhere. And there's a bond with people that live in the Valley. They understand things that maybe people in other parts of the country don't get. It's the business. Everybody here wants to work together. People are always here willing to help. There's a small town mentality in a big area. And I think that's really what it is. The Valley is a wonderful place. I don't have any intentions of leaving, because even when I've traveled wherever my girls are and other places they've been, or my husband and I have traveled, there's never a place quite like this.
Yeah, it's interesting. People have been asking me with working in my family business that's down in Texas, that mean you'll relocate? And we say, no, this is our home.
Yep.
It's just our home. And there's something so special here. That sense of community is amazing to me. Plus, there's a lot of cool stuff to do. So what do you like to do in your free time? Is there an activity or a place or a thing that you really enjoy that you'd want to share with people?
There's lots of wonderful things in the Valley. And the nice part is you do have selections. We have in variety. We have plenty of restaurants in the Valley to go to. There's so many new places. McCall's Brewery has opened up here in the Lehigh Valley, down Susquehanna Street, close to us. And there's great places to go eat, great activities. It is Steel Stacks always has activities and things to do. We have different kind of festivals. Celtic Fest is coming up. There is never a weekend that there is not something to do in the Valley if you want to go.
I know I love sharing like the Lehigh Valley style top 10 things to do this weekend list. If someone says, well, I don't know what to do. I'm like, don't know what to do. I don't know how to fit it all in. What about going out to eat? I have to say, from the time that you were raised here to now, we've seen really an increase in restaurants. I mean, it's almost why leave, right? I mean, you used to say, well, once in a while we'll go to Philly or New York or something. I mean, I can't even get through the list. Are there some places you really love that you and your husband enjoy going to, or you take your girls to when they come back to visit?
Well, we do have our traditional places, one of which is the Coopersburg Diner. Coopersburg Diner is a family-owned business that's been here forever, and my girls just love it, and I love it. And
my kids love it too. It's the place that they go to as soon as they get home. Nolan and his buddies, we're going to the Coop. Who wants to meet at the Coop? So
it's such a big place. There's other great restaurants, some of which unfortunately aren't here anymore over time. But the Copperhead is a great place in the Valley where we're close to. There's always fun stuff to do over there. Blue is great towards the Easton area. Marblehead Chowder House is one of our favorite places to go to. So there's lots of great places in the area.
What do you think is something that when you say to people, you're trying to describe where you're from, what do you say to them, and what makes it special and unique?
We are a big area with a small town atmosphere. And whatever you need, be it a good pizza place, be it medical care for your children, the Valley has everything. We have the most important things down to who has the best slice. We have it all. And I think that's really important to know, that we're on the cusp of so many big city things with a small town flair.
Yeah, that's a perfect way to put it, Beth. Thank you so much for being our guest. I really appreciate it. Before I let you go, we want to do a little part that we call rapid fire questions. And I want to confirm you have not heard these questions.
Oh, no.
All right. You ready? What is your favorite hobby or a secret talent?
I'm obsessed with fish tanks. I love to maintain fish tanks. Yes.
Like collecting them?
I have a massive 55-gallon fish tank at home. I just put one in the school. I just think fish tanks are the best. I love them. Absolutely.
I love that. See, now that's a really good answer. All right. What's the best advice you've ever received?
Put your children first. That was my parents. And my husband and I follow that. Your kids come first and you take care of them. Best advice ever.
Love it. All right. Which actress would you cast to play you in a movie about your life?
Oh my gosh. Selma Blair. I love her.
Awesome.
I just love her.
All right. Selma Blair, if you're listening, when they do the Beth Grys story, be ready. If you didn't have the job you have now, what would you be doing instead? And it can't be related to education, something different.
It's not. I always have wanted to run a coffee shop, something small with baked goods. And my husband is a cigar smoker, so cigar coffee lounge would be our dream.
I don't know. We might have to see if you can do a special appearance at Biddy and Bo's, have the tie-in between special needs and coffee.
It's a thing. I don't know why, but it's a thing.
I love that. We've learned a lot about you in this rapid fire session, Beth.
Probably
All
more
right.
than
The
you
last
know.
question is, name a person who inspires you.
Has to be my daughters. They are two of the best women I know. Life hasn't always been easy for them, and they've worked really, really hard, and they both have fought for what they're doing now. And, you know, my oldest, Gabby, working with high school students, and the connections that I see she's doing, the advice she's taken from me, and what my daughter, Megan, who has some chronic medical conditions, works in a very tough field and still takes it every day and still loves it. I could not do what they do. And I'm in awe of what they do. So it's my girls.
Well, that's simply the best, simply the best. So congratulations
Thank
to you.
you.
Thank you for your service to our community, to the diocese, and most certainly, especially to Mercy School for Special Learning. It's an honor to know that my children got to cross your educational path, even just for a moment in
wonderful.
time. So thanks for being our guest
you.
today, Beth. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
You're listening to Unscripted. Until next time.
Like what you saw? Be sure to subscribe to our channel so you never miss another video.
To see more of the Peak TV, check out our website, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and catch us on WFMZ Channel 69.